The verdict is in. The Miami Grand Prix was a disaster. From the fake marina to Martin Brundle's disastrous grid walk, it seemed like nothing went smoothly, but the biggest problem was on the track itself. So what really happened with Miami's track surface? Plus, are Leclerc's championship dreams dead in the water after Ferrari's disastrous Monaco Grand Prix? Stay tuned to find out all of that, plus much more. First up, staying on track. The biggest complaints at the Miami Grand Prix were coming from the drivers themselves. Most of them agreed that it was below the standard that they're used to. The problem was that the surface wasn't grippy enough, which meant that all of the cars had to stay on the racing line if they wanted to stay in control. Esteban Ocon, who drives for Alpine, said that overtaking was almost impossible and the whole thing was a disaster. In fact, he said that the crash between Mick Schumacher and Sebastian Vettel could be blamed on the surface. He said, "You can't go side by side with a car. It's like driving on slicks in the wet when there's one dry line." So what exactly went wrong with Miami's track surface? Well, apparently there was some damage to the surface caused by a machine that treats the bitumen. Incredibly, the machine had been put on the wrong setting. This meant that hydraulic fluid dripped onto the track and the surface essentially crumbled as soon as the cars began driving over it. And part of that problem was that the Florida Department of Transportation has laws, meaning that the materials used must be local. One of the experts who helped build the track said that this was very limiting. He said that normally with an F1 track, you have a much wider range of aggregates and asphalt materials. The result was that the designers ended up having to use a lime rock aggregate, which breaks down and becomes smooth pretty easily. That's the reason why drivers were struggling for grip out there and noticed a big difference. So we can blame local regulations for that one. Next, star-studded. More than 20,000 people showed up in Miami to watch the fastest 20 drivers in the world do battle at the Miami International Autodrome for the first time. And it was the defending world champion, Max Verstappen, who came out on top. He continued his fight back to the top position by overtaking the Ferraris of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc pretty early on. From there, he kept his position pretty easily and never looked in trouble. Verstappen continued his streak of winning every single race that he has finished this season. Meanwhile, Leclerc managed to win pole position, but his Ferrari just couldn't match the pace of the Red Bull this time. Even after a late safety car, which put Leclerc within striking distance, Verstappen just never seemed at risk. That's why some fans thought the race had been a bit of a dud. The track surface definitely played a part in that, with limited overtaking and a number of cars locking up their tires. The best that Mercedes could do was watch from P5 and P6 as their championship dreams looked dead and buried. Minor upgrades seemed to help the issue of porpoising, but ultimately top speed and cold tires left both of the Silver Arrows at a major disadvantage. But if the track and race left much to be desired, at least the event itself was pretty successful. They managed to attract big names like Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, David Beckham, and even the former First Lady, Michelle Obama. The party atmosphere was the main attraction, so maybe people weren't even watching the race. Coming up next, which Red Bull record is Verstappen about to break? And why does Jos Verstappen still think that Ferrari have the edge? So don't go anywhere. Next, fighting bulls. 2 races later in Monaco, and there was a huge upset. It could end up having big consequences for the title race too. After Charles Leclerc had a near-perfect weekend up until Sunday, it looked like this year was the year that he broke his Monaco curse. But once the race got underway, Ferrari made a massive error that has come to define their team in the past decade. With Leclerc sitting in P1, all they had to do was manage the charging bulls behind them. It's near impossible to overtake in Monaco, and so the race came down to pit stop strategy. Unfortunately, miscommunication, mistiming, and mistakes threw away the lead for Leclerc. He was called in too early and was probably given the wrong tires in changing conditions. As he entered the pits, his engineers seemed to change their mind and tell him to stay out, but it was too late, and Leclerc had a rare moment of anger towards his Ferrari team. He couldn't understand how they made such a big error at such a crucial time. By the end of the race, it was Sergio Perez who had profited and finished P1, with Carlos Sainz lucky to finish in P2. But Leclerc wasn't the only one angry about his team's strategy. Max Verstappen's father, Jos, vented his frustration at Red Bull after the race in a blog post. He said that the team had thrown away points for Max, who is now leading the world championship. championship. Instead, their strategy gamble favored Sergio Perez, and after a 2-year contract extension that was announced shortly after, team boss Christian Horner said that the two drivers will be treated equally. This could be the start of a very fiery Red Bull war. And now, the Golden Boy. Since officially joining Red Bull in 2016, it has been clear to many that Red Bull's future rested largely on the young prodigy. The constructor is famous for its Red Bull Junior team, which finds young talent and sponsors them. That's what they did with Sebastian Vettel, who broke records and became the youngest Grand Prix winner in 2009, and then the following year became the youngest world champion. He went on to bag 3 more titles for Red Bull before leaving for Ferrari to fulfill his childhood dream. But for the last 5 years, it's been all Max Verstappen. He broke Vettel's record for the youngest Grand Prix winner and did it at the tender age of 18. At the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, he could break another one. If he wins there, he will have the most podiums for a Red Bull driver. Both Vettel and Verstappen are currently equal at 65 podiums each. He will no doubt break it this season, which is a testament to show just how competitive Verstappen has been. He dominated the karting world so much that after less than a year of driving open-wheel cars, he basically jumped straight into Formula One. And last year was the culmination of his years of chipping away at the Mercedes stronghold. In a tense and dramatic title fight, he dethroned 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton and won his first title. This year, he's trying to defend it, but it won't be an easy task. Ferrari have been competitive all season, and Charles Leclerc is hot on Verstappen's heels after losing the lead to Monaco. But it's not just Leclerc that the Dutchman has to watch out for. His teammate Perez's recent performances will have him a little worried too. Perez is only just behind Leclerc in P3, and it's very much a 3-way battle. Next, prancing horses. Max Verstappen's dad thinks that Ferrari still have a clear advantage. Despite Max clawing his way back to the top of the standings, Jos Verstappen thinks that it's still an uphill battle. He said that Red Bull shouldn't forget that Ferrari currently has a better car, especially in qualifying. But this is a position that Max is pretty comfortable in. For years, he was punching above his weight and fighting the two Mercedes in a slower Red Bull car. It was only in the 2021 season that he was really given a championship-winning car to match his rival, Lewis Hamilton. Both teams know that the fight is a marathon of development and upgrades. Of course, their drivers will need to deliver on track, but it's the improvements from race to race that will probably make the difference. This is why Charles Leclerc was so angry at his Ferrari team during the Monaco Grand Prix. He said that the team could not afford to make many more mistakes if they wanted to win the championship this year. After the race, he said, "Mistakes happen, unfortunately. Today, we made too many." Team boss Mattia Binotto has a tough job ahead of him to tighten up the Ferrari machine, but he said that the strategic errors at Monaco will make us stronger. You know what they say, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Let's just hope that Ferrari are still alive after the next few races. Do you think that Verstappen has been the better driver so far this season, or has he been helped by Ferrari's big mistakes? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.